You think you know Blazing Saddles? The jokes, the cowboys, the chaos? But you don't. Behind the laughter was something darker. An actor nearly died, another vanished, and the censors begged Warner Brothers to shut it down. Today, we uncover the secrets they tried to hide. And these 15 weird facts will blow your mind. Fact 1. Waco Kid almost died on set. You're not gonna believe this. The Waco Kid literally collapsed on his first day. The actor wasn't Gene Wilder at first. It was Gig Young, an Oscar winner. He walked on set in his cowboy boots, stepped into that dusty jail cell, and started shaking. Everyone thought it was part of the performance until he hit the ground. Years of alcohol abuse caught up right there in front of the cameras. Green bile poured from his mouth. Crew members froze. Mel Brooks didn't even shout cut. They had to carry him out. That was day 1 of Blazing Saddles. Brooks called it the worst start of his career. He fired Young immediately and later admitted, "If you want an alcoholic, don't cast an alcoholic." But here's the part nobody talks about. 4 years later, Gig Young shot his wife, then himself. His death still hangs over Blazing Saddles like a curse. The movie that almost killed him before fame, guilt, and addiction finished the job. Fact 2. Gene Wilder's midnight rescue that saved the film. After Gig Young's collapse, Mel Brooks was in full panic. His movie was collapsing, his lead actor was gone, and the studio was ready to pull the plug. At 2 a.m., he grabbed the phone and called the only person he trusted, Gene Wilder. "Can you fly out tomorrow?" Brooks begged. "We start shooting at dawn." Wilder just said, "I'm coming." He landed in Los Angeles the next morning, still half asleep, and walked straight onto set. That's how unplanned it was. The costume was meant for someone else. Brooks told him, "You're the Waco Kid now. Just make it real." And he did. But not by being funny. Wilder decided the character wasn't a clown. He was a broken man hiding behind a hangover. He said, "I'll play him like he's dead inside." That single choice flipped the tone of the movie. That contrast made his lines hit like gunfire. The Waco Kid stopped being a punchline and became a ghost of the Old West. Drunk, tired, and unforgettable. Fact 3. The genius they erased from his own movie. Blazing Saddles was meant to be Richard Pryor's movie. He co-wrote it, shaped its pulse, and carved out every line that made the audience laugh and flinch at the same time. Mel Brooks wanted him as Sheriff Bart, the first black lawman in a white western. Pryor said yes without hesitation, but Warner Brothers said no without thinking. They called him uninsurable, unstable. His arrest record, his cocaine use, his reputation for walking off stage mid-set. Too much risk, they said. Brooks fought for him and lost. So Pryor stayed behind the curtain and turned his anger into fuel. He rewrote scenes that everyone else tiptoed around. He told Brooks, "If you're going to mock racism, don't sugarcoat it. Make it hurt before it's funny." That's why Blazing Saddles cuts the way it does. The slurs, the silences, the awkward laughter, they were deliberate. Pryor wanted the audience to feel the sting of America's sickness before they could laugh it off. When the cameras finally rolled, Cleavon Little wore the badge, but Pryor wrote the bullets. And 2 years later, when Pryor and Gene Wilder teamed up for Silver Streak and set box office records, Hollywood finally realized what it had thrown away. The leading man it was too scared to let lead. Fact 4. The day John Wayne said, "Hell no." Do you know that Mel Brooks really wanted John Wayne to play the Waco Kid? That's right, the John Wayne. He was still one of the biggest stars in the world. When Mel Brooks sent him the script, Wayne just sat in silence halfway through, then said flatly, "I can't do this." At first, Wayne actually loved it. That's the part nobody believes. He told Brooks it was hilarious, but too dirty for his image. Still, he promised, "I'll be first in line to see it." And he was. That little act of respect said everything. Wayne knew the movie was brilliant. He just couldn't be the one to break his own legend. But that rejection really made the film even sharper. Wayne became part of it. The clean, heroic cowboy who built Hollywood's myth walked away, and Blazing Saddles buried that myth in fire and laughter. Fact 5. The screening that made executives turn white. When Warner Brothers first saw Blazing Saddles, they sat frozen. No laughs, just horror. The movie was loud, rude, and dangerous. A black sheriff, fart jokes, and a man punching a horse. By the time the credits rolled, one executive muttered, "We can't release this. Ever." Leo Greenfield, head of distribution, said it louder, "Bury it." The studio wanted the film erased before anyone outside saw it. But Mel Brooks didn't argue. He just nodded, left quietly, and arranged another screening. This time for the secretaries, janitors, and mail clerks. What happened next saved everything. Those workers screamed laughing. They fell off chairs. They clapped, cried, and shouted lines back at the screen. Brooks leaned over and whispered, "That's my audience." That night, the studio realized the truth. The people who cleaned their offices understood comedy better than the ones who ran them. Fact 6. Cleavon Little's silent war behind the camera. Cleavon Little looked effortless on screen, cool, sharp, untouchable. But behind that calm smile, he was taking punches nobody else saw. During filming, he got hate mail, slurs. People who didn't get the satire thought he was mocking them, and they wanted him gone. And you know, he never told Mel Brooks. The director later said he was shocked when he learned what Little had endured. He carried it alone, Brooks admitted. Cleavon kept working like nothing was wrong. He'd walk onto set, trade lines with Gene Wilder, and nail every scene with flawless precision. Then he'd go back to his hotel, open another envelope, and quietly read another piece of hate. What the public never knew was that Little's calm confidence, that untouchable energy, came from real defiance. He wasn't just playing a man standing tall against racism. He was that man. Fact 7. The horse that actually got punched. Only Mel Brooks could turn animal cruelty into a punchline, and somehow get away with it. There's a moment in Blazing Saddles that still makes audiences gasp. A cowboy walks up to a horse, throws a full-on punch, and drops it like a sack of bricks. People always assume it was movie magic. It wasn't. That was a real stunt, a real swing, and a real horse. The animal had been trained to collapse on cue, and the punch was carefully choreographed with a professional stuntman. They rehearsed it once, shot it once, and nailed it. No doubles, no camera trickery. Today, that scene would shut down production, trigger investigations, and have animal rights lawyers waiting outside the studio gates. But in 1974, audiences howled. Even the cast barely blinked. It was outrageous, absurd, and completely unfiltered. Later, Mel Brooks called it his line in the sand. If he could make people laugh at something that insane, he could take them anywhere. Racism, politics, sex, religion. Nothing was off limits after that horse hit the dirt. And that's what made Blazing Saddles revolutionary. One punch proved that in Mel Brooks's world, no rule, no taboo, and not even a horse was safe. Fact 8. Mel Brooks versus the censors. When Blazing Saddles hit the studio review board, it was like watching a boxing match. Brooks on one side, a dozen censors on the other, all holding red pens. They flagged everything. The slurs, the innuendo, the religious jokes, even the opening line. One censor said, "If this movie goes out as is, You'll never work again." Brooks didn't blink. He fought for every word. The execs wanted him to take the edge off, but he knew the edge was the point. He told them, "If you cut the pain out, you kill the joke." For days, they argued line by line. Even "up yours" was debated like it was a national threat. Finally, Brooks snapped. He told them the truth. Racism isn't funny unless you show it for what it is: ugly, loud, stupid, and real. And somehow he won. Every line stayed. Every insult stayed. When the film finally hit theaters, it was raw, dangerous, and exactly as he intended. Fact 9. The Governor's Dirty Little Secret. If you thought the governor's name, William J. Lepetoman, was nonsense, you missed one of Mel Brooks's filthiest inside jokes. It wasn't random at all. Brooks named him after Joseph Pujol, a real French performer from the 1800s known as Lepetoman, literally, the fart maniac. No, seriously, this guy built an entire career around controlled flatulence. He could inhale air through his rectum and play it like a musical instrument. He performed at the Moulin Rouge, blew out candles, did impressions, even smoked a cigarette, all with his backside. He was so famous that nurses were stationed in the audience to carry out people who fainted from laughing. Some reports say one man even died laughing at his show. So when Brooks named the governor after him, it wasn't just toilet humor. It was a tribute to the original master of absurd comedy. That's how deep Brooks went. Fact 10. The jazz band that appeared out of thin air. You're watching a Western. Dust, cowboys, saloons. And suddenly, boom! Count Basie's full jazz orchestra shows up in the middle of the desert, tuxedos gleaming, blasting April in Paris. That moment broke people's brains in 1974. Jazz didn't even exist in 1874, not for another 2 decades. But that was the point. Mel Brooks didn't care about time or reason. He wanted to make the audience laugh, then force them to ask, "What the hell just happened?" Brooks used Basie's legendary 1955 arrangement, the one that made him a global icon. And here's the genius. Basie didn't play a character. He played himself. It was surreal, it was impossible, and it was perfect. That scene wasn't just funny. It was Brooks giving a giant middle finger to Hollywood rules. He was saying, "If I can drop a 1930s jazz band into a Western and you still love it, then I can do anything." And he did. Fact 11. The actress who hid in plain sight. Anne Bancroft, Hollywood royalty, Mel Brooks's wife, was there on set and nobody knew. She didn't want attention. She just slipped into a church scene as an anonymous extra, surrounded by the cast, quietly watching her husband's madness unfold. The crew didn't even realize it until weeks later. There she was, a woman who'd won an Oscar for The Miracle Worker, dressed like a local townsfolk, no lines, no spotlight. And get this, IMDb still refuses to officially list her in the film, even after fans and historians proved it. Brooks once joked, "She was the only star on that set who didn't need a trailer." That uncredited cameo became one of Hollywood's strangest love notes, a private moment between a genius director and the woman who believed in his insanity when no one else did. Fact 12. The audition that could have gone terribly wrong. When Madeline Kahn walked into Mel Brooks's office, she thought she was about to be humiliated. Brooks asked to see her legs, and she froze. She thought it was that kind of audition, the kind every woman in Hollywood had been warned about. She snapped, "So it's that kind of audition?" Brooks nearly had a heart attack trying to explain. He wasn't being sleazy. He just needed to see if she could pull off a move like Marlene Dietrich's chair straddle from Destry Rides again. The tension broke instantly. Kahn grabbed a chair, threw one leg over, lifted her skirt just enough, and nailed it. Mel Brooks said he knew right there she was Lily von Stupp. Her attitude, her timing, her confidence, that mix of danger and humor no one else had. But the best part? As she walked out, she lifted her skirt again and said, "No touching." Completely improvised, everyone in the room burst out laughing. That single moment turned into one of the most iconic casting stories in comedy history. Fact 13. The night the explosion almost killed the cast. You think a comedy set is all laughter, until the dynamite goes off too early. During one of Blazing Saddles' wildest scenes, a fake toll booth was supposed to blow sky high. It was rigged with a timed charge, carefully set to explode only after the actors cleared the blast zone. But that day, something went wrong. The charge detonated seconds early, just as the cast was still running for cover. Crew members screamed. The sky filled with debris, dust, and panic. Everyone froze, thinking someone had been hit. Miraculously, no one was hurt. But it was close, way too close. Brooks stood in shock before finally saying, "Well, it looked great, didn't it?" And it did. The shot made the final cut. It's funny when you watch it, but behind that laughter was a near tragedy that could have shut the whole production down. Mel Brooks later joked that Blazing Saddles was the only movie where a fart and a stick of dynamite got equal screen time. But truth is, that day, they almost lost more than a scene. They almost lost their stars. Fact 14. The drunk who never came back. Gig Young's story didn't end with him getting fired. It got darker. After collapsing on day one, he sued Warner Brothers, claiming they'd humiliated him. The studio quietly settled, but Hollywood didn't forget. Directors stopped calling. Casting agents looked away. His Oscar, his charm, his legacy, all gone. Then, in 1978, came the headline that froze everyone. Oscar winner Gig Young kills wife, then himself. He'd married a 21-year-old German actress just 3 weeks earlier. The police found them both in their New York apartment, her shot in the head, his body next to hers. Nobody from Blazing Saddles ever spoke publicly about it, but the guilt lingered. Mel Brooks once said privately, he was too good an actor to end like that. Gig Young's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning. The man who should have been the Waco Kid didn't just lose a role. He lost himself. Fact 15. The $10 million joke that went too far. You'd think being parodied in a comedy would be flattering, unless you were Hedy Lamarr. When Blazing Saddles hit theaters, audiences howled at Harvey Korman's ridiculous villain, Hedy Lamarr, the preening, self-obsessed idiot who couldn't stand when anyone mispronounced his name. But while the world laughed, the real Hedy wasn't amused. She was furious. Once Hollywood's most dazzling star, the face of 1940s glamour and the woman whose beauty inspired Disney's Snow White, Lamarr felt humiliated. She'd gone from being the screen's ultimate goddess to a cheap punchline in a bawdy western, and she wasn't going to let that slide. Lamarr filed a $10 million lawsuit against Mel Brooks and Warner Brothers, claiming they used her name without permission. Brooks initially thought it was a joke. He even mocked the situation in the film itself with the line, "This is 1874. You'll be able to sue her." But she wasn't kidding. She saw it as disrespect. A lifetime of artistry reduced to one bad joke. For Mel Brooks, the laughter stopped cold. He told his lawyers, "Just pay her. Whatever she wants." The details of the settlement never surfaced, but everyone in town knew it hurt. That lawsuit became a cautionary tale whispered across Hollywood, proof that when comedy crosses the line between clever and cruel, even the funniest man alive has to pay the bill. Now that you know the truth, do you think Blazing Saddles could ever be made today? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe before the next secret gets buried again.